Hey everybody, Roger says hey. Today we're kicking off the Great War. We're going to get into the very first episode that kind of talks about how the war actually got started, actually got underway. We've been doing the prelude videos, kind of like exploring what led up to all of this, so I'm excited to get this journey started. Well, we are in video number 1 of a very, very long list of videos, but I am looking forward to the long slog, as it were. The videos aren't too long, so I think at least it's going to be manageable in that sense. But I actually don't know how World War I started. Now, we do know about the assassination that kind of sparked everything, but as far as like the war actually starting between nations, I really actually don't know how that happened. But before we get into the video, I do want to do comment time, where I just kind of review some of your comments that kind of stuck out to me in the last video, which was the part 3 of the prelude. And if you're not interested in this part, just skip right to the reaction chapter. But let's get into comment time. Our first comment comes from Jody Carter. And she says just one thing, Von is pronounced with an F sound, so fun. Yeah, it's, I kind of have like heard that on shows and movies and stuff. Just a little foresight for you when you start the Otto von Bismarck series. My Dutch, I know you say it like Deutsch or something like that, right? The Deutsch. Why did I say Dutch? Deutsch is like a German word, isn't it? It's not the same thing as Dutch. My Deutsch side can't take it. Absolutely loving the series. Yeah, sorry about the pronunciation issues. I do appreciate you guys correcting me though. It just kind of helps me learn how to say things in other languages. So I'll try to remember fun, or fun. It seems so weird for me saying it with an F sound, but okay. MX Lexer says the monarch of the Austria-Hungarian Empire was the Emperor Franz Joseph. Archduke was the highest rank of nobility below the emperor. Okay, I don't think I grasped that it was called an emperor. So we have the emperor, and then we have the archduke. Dave F says, something I've been meaning to say, you're absolutely not being shortchanged in the US in terms of what you're being taught. I didn't specialize in history in school, but the murder of Franz Ferdinand was more or less the beginning and end of what people are taught about the origins of World War I in British schools as well. Or at least that was the case in the 1980s. So, I don't know, maybe it's different today. But that's interesting. I would have thought that World War I was covered a little bit more in depth in England than it would be over here in the US. Just because you guys were involved in it a lot more than we were. But interesting to hear that, actually. So I guess it makes me feel a little less like bad about it, but still, I wish that it was taught a little bit better in the school curriculums. Muhammad Ali says a good video series to check out for the Ottoman Empire would be the videos on the Ottoman Empire playlist on Kings and Generals. It goes into a lot of details surrounding the early history and expansion across Southern Europe and the Middle East. I'm going to be mixing in some videos on Otto von Bismarck and the Ottoman Empire. For some reason, you know what, in the past I've always paired those two, of Otto von Bismarck and the Ottoman Empire, because they have both Otto in their names. Although I know that Otto von Bismarck was more of Germany, and the Ottoman Empire is not Germany. So yeah, we'll be getting into the Ottoman Empire. Thank you for the suggestion on Kings and Generals. I think another one or two of you also suggested Kings and Generals, so that'll probably be where I go to see those videos. Mr. Benedictus25 says the 70 archdukes is in the history of Austria, not at one time. That makes way more sense. I could have sworn I thought there was just one archduke. The way that the video put it last time, it made it sound like that there were 70 of them all at one time. They didn't really clarify that, so I guess I just misunderstood what they were saying. Our last comment was one of my favorites on the last video, is Dirk Schaap, the Ottomans and the link to the discovery of the New World. The short, simple answer is Europeans, we can't go east. Okay, let's go west. So I guess the Ottomans inspired the Europeans to discover the New World. So that should be interesting to learn about, actually. Alright, well that'll do it for your comments. Again, appreciate you guys leaving all of them for me. They are super helpful. Like, I don't think you guys realize just how helpful your comments are in clarifying things, helping me understand things that I misunderstand in the videos, which happens pretty much every video. So if it wasn't for you, I would be a little bit more lost with these videos that I watch. So again, really appreciate it. Thank you guys for putting up with my ignorance on a lot of this stuff. But we're gonna go ahead and get into this video. And before we do that, just a quick reminder to like and subscribe if you enjoyed my videos on this channel. It would mean a lot to me, appreciate it. But also make sure that you guys don't miss the rest of the videos in this series if you guys are into World War I. Okay, so let's check out the start of the Great War.
My name is Indy Nidell, and this channel, The Great War, is going to cover the First World War week by week as it unfolded 100 years later, from today until November 2018, so you can really get a sense of just what happened as it happened. The active weeks, the passive weeks, the weeks of carnage, and the weeks of hope, we'll follow them all one by one. And we've made a couple of special episodes about the prelude to war, so you can get some idea of all of the forces in motion. We've also made a special episode about the assassination of the Archduke and his wife, as it was one of the pivotal moments in our history. All three of these episodes will come out in the next few days. "100 years ago today, on July 28, 1914, the Empire of Austria-Hungary declared war on the Kingdom of Serbia. Now, as you are probably aware, this snowballed within days into the First World War. Now, people often talk about the blank check, when Kaiser Wilhelm said on July 5, 1914, that he would unconditionally support Austria in whatever actions she took against Serbia. And this is seen as the main argument for Germany's responsibility for the war. But this is a little too simple. In the days following the assassination of the Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo by the Serb Gavrilo Princip, there were anti-Serbian riots and demonstrations in much of Bosnia, and official dispatches to Vienna that there was Serbian complicity in the plot. But general European reactions to the killings were quite mild. Austria, however, had big ideas, many of them coming from Army Chief of Staff Konrad von Hotzendorf, and I love that name. Konrad was a vehement imperialist for Austria and Austrian greatness. He's also been described as being, quote, the most dangerous kind of officer, both stupid and intensely energetic. There you have it. In fact, in the year and a half before today, 1914, he asked his government to go to war no less than 26 times. And it's very important to note here that his main counterweight, the man who repeatedly urged Emperor Franz Joseph against war with Russia or war with Serbia, not to listen to Konrad, was Archduke Franz Ferdinand, now deceased. The assassination was, to Konrad, a heaven-sent means to curb Serbian power and ambition. Now, to understand the next few weeks, we really need to look a bit at both Germany and Russia. In 1912, the Kaiser had told Army Chief of Staff von Moltke and Grand Admiral von Tirpitz that, quote, Austria had to act vigorously against the foreign Slavs. If Russia were to support the Serbs, war would be inevitable for us. Although we think of pre-war Russia today as a backwater, this was not really the case. Russia had become the world's fourth largest economy by 1914. Okay, shortage of money had always meant before that she had never been able to build and equip her army like the Germans could, but more importantly, her railways. By 1914, though, Russian currency was on the gold standard, and the railroads were booming, and Russia would be able to easily and quickly defend her borders in only a few years. Now, this was a big fear in the German high command, since Russia obviously had the manpower advantage. Once her railways were a match for Germany, well, German Chancellor von Bethmann-Hollweg's diary from July 7th tells us these thoughts, that Russia had become a nightmare, and that the German generals say there must be a war before it was too late. By 1917, Germany has no hope, so better 1914.
You know, it's interesting, it's really this video, and I know that you guys are going to get on to me about this because I've seen so many videos up to this point that did explain the alliances, and I did understand that, but I'm understanding it in a broader sense in this video now. It's just like clicking. You guys know how, like, when you watch things, you know, the more you watch something, the I don't know, the different understanding that you have as you go on. And so I'm understanding the alliances in a bit broader sense now. Before this video, I was kind of thinking of them in terms of individual countries allying with each other. This time, though, I'm kind of seeing how these countries are grouping against each other. So I'm seeing Germany and Austria-Hungary, which, you know, I've come to understand is basically the same... well, I don't know if ethnicity is the right word, but they're basically the same type, same country in a way. I don't really know how to say that properly, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. That we have Germany and Austria, and then we have Russia and the Slavs, and so it's really Germany pitting against Russia, you know, the way that these countries are grouped. And so I'm kind of seeing that now. For the first time kind of in this video, understanding that this isn't really so much Austria-Hungary versus the Slavs, it's more of Germany against Russia, I guess, is what it evolves into, is what I'm kind of seeing here. I hope that's correct. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
As an aside here, this was the opinion of the generals and some government leaders, but it was not the opinion of the German people at large. You see, Germany had the largest population of socialists in Europe, and they and others comprised a big anti-war segment of society. So the Kaiser wrote on June 30th, "The Serbs must be disposed of, and right soon." And he did pledge German support for Austria, and he did tell the Austrian ambassador on July 5th that should war between Austria-Hungary and Russia prove unavoidable, Germany would be at Austria's side. However, and this is really important, he also told his chancellor that he did not think there was a real prospect of war, that Russia was not close to being ready. The next day, he went on his annual 3-week vacation cruise to Norway, which is kind of not what you do if you were basically the most powerful man in the world and you were about to go to a major war. So in spite of it all, a world war was not on the Kaiser's mind. So, on July 7th, the Austro-Hungarian cabinet met to discuss Serbia, and they were for a war to reduce Serbia's size and make her dependent on Austria. On July 13th, a secret report reached Vienna from Sarajevo that there was zero evidence the Serbian government had anything to do with the assassination. Now, this didn't really change anything, but this did. Franz Joseph finally became convinced that Austria could take action against Serbia without any other powers interfering, so he agreed to issue an ultimatum. The terms of the ultimatum were finalized on July 19th. It had a total of 15 demands, and it linked the Belgrade government with the assassination, even without evidence. Now, you can look up the demands yourself, but here are a couple that really stick out. The Serbian government must condemn anti-Austrian propaganda and punish anyone who made or distributed it. And the big one, Austrian officials would participate in the judicial process in Serbia. Yep, they would be in charge of justice in another country. Now, as you may guess, this ultimatum was designed to be rejected. It was sent on July 23rd with 48 hours for Serbia to agree to it. 6 p.m. on July 25th, Serbia answered the ultimatum. She agreed that anti-Austrian propagandists would be punished and subversive movements suppressed, and actually agreed to almost everything else. But as to Austria participating in the judicial process within Serbia, Serbia simply asked that this demand be submitted to the tribunal in The Hague. Now, everybody except Austria thought this response was just fine, but Austria was determined to go to war. Actually, Russia suggested 2 days later that negotiations between her and Vienna should be opened to try and sort things out. This was refused. A British attempt the same day to talk Germany into having a 4-power conference to also try to sort things out was rejected as well. And you know what? Here's something that happened then that remained secret until after the war. On July 28th, 100 years ago today, Kaiser Wilhelm finally read the full text of the Austrian ultimatum and Serbia's response, and he could see no reason at all for Austria to declare war. Yep, after all this had happened, the Kaiser wrote, "A great moral victory for Vienna, but with it, every reason for war is removed." And just about an hour after the Kaiser scribbled that in the margins, Emperor Franz Joseph signed a declaration of war on Serbia, confident of German support. And that declaration would turn out to be the death warrant of his own empire. We'll see you next week. Click subscribe to get each and every episode as it comes out. And if you like the show, but English isn't your best language, Once again, this show is also available in German.
Hang on, I'm lost here. Who was the one? Is it the German Wilhelm who said that he doesn't see any reason to go to war, but the Austrian emperor is the one who did?
On July 28th, 100 years ago today, Kaiser Wilhelm finally read the full text of the Austrian ultimatum and Serbia's response, and he could see no reason at all for Austria to declare war.
Okay, yeah, it's a little difficult for me to keep up with who's who and who's doing what, although it's starting to sink in now. Kaiser Wilhelm, Germany, Franz Joseph, Austria. So yeah, I think I've mentioned in some other videos that I'm horrible with names, so it takes me a while to like kind of learn who people are and what they're associated with. I know that this is super easy to all of you guys who have studied this a lot before. You know, the names are easy to keep up with and stuff, but for me, who's just like hearing a lot of this stuff for the first time, it's you know, I'm still trying to sort it out. So it's interesting to me that the UK, Britain, was trying to get involved to avert a war here. Now, I think a lot of this stuff that the last couple of minutes of this video was mentioned in the Seminal Tragedy videos. I do remember kind of hearing a lot of this stuff in that. But yes, it is very interesting to me that Britain, I guess they kind of got wind that that a war was pretty imminent somehow. I don't know exactly what led to them taking that action, whether it was just them talking with Germany. Did they read the ultimatum as well and just kind of like got this sense that a war was about to start and they were really trying to you know, keep the peace in Europe? And who were the four nations that he was talking about exactly? So I know there would be the UK and Germany. Was it Russia also included in that to try and keep war from starting, or Austria as well? So was it UK, Germany, Austria, and Russia that they were trying to kind of bring in for that agreement? And I like that this was kind of reiterating some of the Seminal Tragedy stuff because it's a review. It's just kind of helping me to get it, you know, in my head what happened, and kind of remembering that Austria really did want to go to war with Serbia, and they had written that ultimatum to be one that they would reject on purpose so that they could go to war with it. I also found it interesting, but I know that this was probably very common practice in a lot of countries at that time, that they would actually actively call for the suppression of anti-Austrian, I don't know, they called it propaganda, but you know, just any sort of anti-Austrian sentiments, I guess. And I know it's not uncommon for a lot of countries to do that. It's just kind of strange though to hear it. You know, I think a lot of us here in the West are very, very used to being able to be very critical of, you know, leaders in power, you know, without any real consequences. So it's always just a little jarring when you hear that's like a completely normal practice in a lot of other countries. Well, maybe jarring isn't quite the word, but you know, it's sad. Like, it kind of makes me sad when I hear about that. And I would today think of Austria and Germany as very, you know, democratic nations that probably wouldn't do that these days. I don't know though, but I don't think that they would, you know, just for the sake of the people that live in those countries. Now, I don't know what it's like in Serbia and some of the Baltic countries, whether it's kind of the same way or not. Just let me know. I'm just curious about like the political state of things, I guess, in some of these various countries. Anyway, good video. Good to we still haven't really kicked off the war yet. I feel like we're still just leading up to it. Like, no shots have been fired yet. It's just a declaration of war. So I still don't know like how it actually kicks off, so I guess that'll be for the next video. Just another reminder to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this one. The links to my Patreon, Discord, social media are in the pinned comment and the description if you're interested in that stuff. Roger here, and I thank you guys for watching. As always, stay tuned for the next video in this series where we will, I think, hopefully actually kick off the war. Yeah, stay tuned for that, and we'll see you guys next time.